All right, family, we got to have a conversation about anti-blackness. Now, I've had a lot of live streams about various subjects, various topics. I've had conversations about police. I've had conversations about reparations. I have conversations about the condition of the general African diaspora, but I haven't had a specific conversation about anti-blackness and how it affects the everyday black person around the planet. If you come into the stream, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you share the stream. Make sure you share the stream with everybody that you know so we can start this conversation. I want people to have the conversation. I want to have a talk about this. If you have more than 1,000 followers, I would love for you to come on and have a conversation. This is a general discussion for anyone to join. This is not a conversation that's going to be held just by black people, because I don't believe that just black people engage in anti-blackness. I don't believe that this is a conversation that should be held by just black people. People should be talking about this because it's a common thing that happens around the world, across the African diaspora, and we speak about it in Black America a lot. We know that people across the African diaspora speak about it, but maybe we don't think that they speak about it enough in a way that is more effective. But again, that is something that we could just agree to disagree on. I just feel that personally we should have the conversation, if nothing else, because I feel that anti-blackness is so common that it is the prevailing rule of thought for everyone else. It is something that is the general mode of operation across the planet, and that it is so acceptable because people in the African diaspora, unfortunately, even some people here in Black America, I'm not gonna sit there and put that all on them, because there's some people here who have played a role. Like, for example, you got your Brandon Tatum's, you got your Anthony Brian Logan's, those like that who have definitely aided white supremacy in various ways. But let's also keep it a buck, though. Here in Black America, there is a resistance to white supremacy that you don't commonly see across the African diaspora, and that's unfortunate. I mean, you see people in the African diaspora who are saying that. You go over to certain African countries and they outnumber white people 10-1. I mean, we are 13% of the population. Look at how we turn up here, right? So anti-blackness isn't something that is a conversation that is just limited to having it amongst black people, as if it's just people that are outsiders who engage in it. There are people who are black who engage in anti-blackness. There are people who, like, for example, I'll give you a prime example. In the Dominican Republic, you have black people there who are being targeted because they're Haitians. And in the government for the Dominican Republic, they are targeting those particular black people. But if you were to go over to that country and you talk to some of those black people, they'll say things like, "I know black, I know black." Stuff like that. And it's like, wait, hold on. You're targeted because you're black, and now you think that you aren't black? See, anti-blackness, it could come in the form of certain black people downgrading themselves because they are black. Like, I'll give you a prime example. Just the other night, I was having a conversation with an older gentleman about reparations, and he was saying things like, and he could have been white, but he did sound a little bit black, and he was saying things like, well, we act a certain way, so we don't deserve reparations. And it's like, that's a very defeatist mentality and a very anti-black and self-hating type of mentality. So the anti-blackness, it is so common that even black people believe the hype. That's how bad it is. You know something is bad, right? When you can convince a black person that they're bad, even though they have the black skin color. Something is bad when you have a black person who wants to start a black-owned business, right? Say, just prime example. They want to own a black-owned business, right? You have black people who will doubt that person, but then a white person who starts the exact same business, they'll just believe in them. And it's like, why did you doubt that black person? Because you believe black people can't make it without the help of white mommy and white daddy. That's absurd. I mean, anti-blackness also comes in the form of self-doubt. It also comes in the form of trying to sabotage something just because you don't believe black people can make it on their own. Like, for example, I'll give you a prime example. Say me, for example. I'm a black content creator. I'm pretty much a one-man news organization, right? You got people out there who will doubt me, but will believe everything CNN says, even though CNN has been lying to them for years. And I ain't lied to you once. Do you know that I've been completely demonetized? I don't do this for money. I don't have a PayPal. I ain't got a Patreon. I've never asked you for money. I've asked you to donate to the Innocence Project or donate to a black-owned business, but that's about where it ends. You know? So the problem with black people is that we expect our own folks to work for free, and then even when you have somebody who is upstanding, right? You have somebody who will come and sabotage them, and we going into 2023 and beyond, we gotta change that as the global black community. We've got to change that. We got to start believing in each other. The same business that a white person starts, or an Asian person starts, or a Hispanic person starts, we can start too, and you have to believe in that person. You got to believe in that person. Give them a chance. You are so willing to agree with the dominant white society to throw a black man behind bars for a crime with no victim, but you won't invest even a second of time to believe in the same black man when he starts a business. And you wonder why we can't prosper? We can prosper. We have the numbers. We have the people. We have the dollars. The problem is us. Right now, on that front. Now, white supremacy is a thing, but this whole scared stuff where we gotta sabotage each other, we gotta engage in the crabs in the bucket mentality. We gotta sit there and sabotage, another black person because they want to do the exact same thing that a white person does or a person who is non-black does. That mentality has to go. That is a very defeatist mentality, and that is a mentality that does not originate from black people. We come from kings, queens, warriors, and conquerors. Inventors, innovators, surgeons, doctors, astronauts, astrobiologists. We come from a long lineage of giants, titans, in every field and every industry. Entertainment, music. Military inventions, stuff that affects everyday life. You see black people have achieved excellence despite of white supremacy, and yet for some reason we will engage in this anti-black sabotaging of each other, and it's so silly. It's so silly. You don't understand. Black people, we have a code. We just have to stick to it. See, right now, black people, we are adhering to the code of white supremacy. Every time we mention, every time that we mention reforming the policing, you bring up, well, what about black on black crime? That's anti-blackness. Anytime that we mention getting reparations, and you say, well, we don't need reparations, we need Jesus, that's anti-blackness. You're sabotaging. Every time that we mention a black-owned business and you put down the product in a way that you don't put down products from other communities. Like, for example, I'll give you a prime example. There is a brother who's trying to get a shoe deal with Kyrie Irving, right? Brother named Sia Collective. Shout out to that brother. Great brother. I think his name is Devlin. Great brother. He makes his own shoes, his own clothes. There's a bunch of people out there saying, well, I don't like the way his shoes look. That's not the point. Do you get it? He's a black-owned business who can produce the same products as Nike, as Adidas, as Puma, as New Balance, as Under Armour. Why would you sit there and try to sabotage that brother knowing what he's trying to do? That's anti-blackness. That's self-hatred. That's slave mentality. When you see a black person trying to get out of the system of white supremacy, trying to actually prosper, trying to actually build some infrastructure, trying to actually give us something where we have a face in an industry, you don't sabotage that person. You don't sabotage that person. You don't see anybody else from any other community doing that. When Jewish people start a business, they stick together, which is fine. I'm fine with that. In fact, I admire that. That's a good mentality to have. When you see Hispanic people starting a business, they stick together. That's good. That's good. I appreciate that. It's a good template to build on. It's a good thing to observe and actually emulate. I'm not going to hate you if you're doing good. That's why I never understood all the vitriol that Jews get. Listen, the one thing about black folks is if you're doing good, we ain't gonna hate on you. The only thing that we want is we want to learn and we want to get the same thing that basically you got. That's it. But this idea that we gotta sabotage ourselves in a way that other people don't. And it's not just business, it's also entertainment. Notice how you have black people in the media like Stephen A. Smith, Shannon Sharp. You got others who will go after a black celebrity the second they mess up even once. Even once. Do you how many white sports commentators have you seen go after Brett Favre? In fact, we know that many people in the sports media were told to not say anything about Dana White. They were told to handle him with kid gloves. We have screenshots. I've made videos about it that went viral, baby. So we are past the point of denying that one. We past the point. Okay? So the white media protects Brett Favre. The white media protects his Dana White. Meanwhile, Will Smith has a incident with a man, and we judge Will Smith more harshly than we judge Dana White. Well, see. Dana White's wife, she might have struck him first. So did Ray White's wife. And how did all these tap dancing people, all these so-called black representatives in the sports media, how do they treat Ray Rice? Don't worry, I'll wait. Don't worry, I'll be here all night, folks. I saw how you treated Ray Rice, Greg Hardy, and I don't agree with any of those guys. However, if you're going to go after them, I want fair and equal standards. And the second that you say that, right, you get these tap dancing folks, these folks that's been eating these butter biscuits. You know the type. You know, it goes back to the old saying, not all skin folk are kinfolk. Because last I checked, a lot of these folks in the media, they got black wives too. See, there's this misconception that you can't be pro-black or you're automatically anti-black based on who you date. Well, if that's the case, Strom Thurmond was one of the most racist politicians in American history, and he dated a whole lot of black women. In fact, I met his black daughter in a Kroger, but in some areas you might call it Fred Meyer or you might call it Safeway. Same company though. So it's very weird how we think that if a black man dates somebody outside of his race, he can't be pro-black. But certainly that's strange because white supremacists can definitely date somebody who is black and still be a white supremacist. See, it's a weird thing that we have in the black community. We find any reason to tear down a black person with weird standards that doesn't apply to any other community. It's the craziest thing, right? So prime example. I'm not gay, but I've seen a lot of black gay people complain about this. Yes, you're black, but I don't want to speak for all black gay people. That's fair. Why should that standard be on you? You ain't caused no homophobia. You are still a victim of white supremacy. Why should that be on you? Or even a black woman. Why should it be on black women to constantly explain their condition when you have the stats? You got the studies. You can use Google for crying out loud. That is the library of Alexander the Great times 1,000. And yet people find any reason to tear somebody down despite the fact that we are under a system of white supremacy. It doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter if you're black and gay, you're black and transgender, you're black and lesbian, you're a black woman, you're a black man, you're a black child. It don't matter if you're black and old, black veteran, it don't matter. It doesn't matter. When it comes to black people, everybody gets on cold, even other black people. That's the sad part. That's the part that hurts my soul. When I see a black person who I know is in the sunken place. My Lord. My Lord. Listen. Don't you think that your dating choices dictates who you are? Because if that's the case, Steven Spielberg, I think his wife is black, and she makes him pay for all kinds of black initiatives, all kinds of scholarships. She makes that white supremacist pay all that stuff. Yeah, she absolutely does. She makes him pay. Or even look at look at Venus and Serena. Both of them have been known to date white men, but both of them have been known to make them pay for initiatives for black girls. That's why I respect them. Because like they say, hey, our children are black, so we ain't got a choice. I like that. So people like that who are still on code despite who you date, I can appreciate that, right? But here's the problem that I get. It's when these people who do date outside of their race and then they start thinking that they are better than black people. I've been to the other side. Like, you get these black men, and I'll tell you, I do have a non-black wife, but I have seen black men do this. And it makes me very upset because my mother's black. My grandmother's black. My sister's black. There is nothing wrong with black women. I just happened to come to Washington State. And it is fantastically white here. It is so white here. You know it's white. When the average fast food joint you go to, they have nothing but mustard packets everywhere, but all the mayonnaise gold. Lord have mercy. Baby, listen. My wife's sitting right over here, right? And I told her off on one time because I said, "Ain't no mustard in this refrigerator. You bought nothing but what? It was mayonnaise, and I think it was sour cream. Yeah, mayonnaise and sour cream. I'm from South Carolina. Listen, I have lost 60 pounds since I've come to this state. And it's only because I don't eat nothing here. Hold on, baby. To this day, right? We went by Sherry's Cafe, right? And to this day, that biscuits and gravy that they actually gave me, right? To this day, I get almost violently angry when you bring it up, right? Because it was insultingly bad. You bring it up and we both get mad. Yeah, we both get mad. Look, we both get mad and she didn't even eat it. It was the most insulting meal, and we paid for that. It was so bad. Listen, y'all. But back to the subject. Anti-blackness, it comes in various forms. It can come in words said. It can come in the history remembered, or as certain people would actually put it, misremembered. It can come in the form of history erased. It can come in the form of how you educate or lack thereof. It can come in the form of what you say or what you fail to say, the policies that you implement or don't implement, and also what you do for others in spite of us. So I think I've given an all encapsulating view of anti-blackness. So anti-blackness is not a very vague term. It is a concept. Whereas wherever that whatever that you're doing, it is done with the intention or without the intention of causing harm or inadvertent harm to a black person or to the overall black community. Prime example. Some people would say that this is a stretch, but then when you actually research it, you find that what I'm saying is true. There are certain words that people use, certain standard terms that people use for black people. Prime example, right? I didn't know that when you that in Washington State or in certain other areas in like the north of the U.S., I didn't know that when they say the word Canadian, they're actually referring to black people. Like, for example, you can walk into a big room of black people, right? And they'll say things like, "Oh, there's a whole lot of Canadians here." and there's no white people present, it's like, what are you talking about? Canadian in certain parts of the Pacific Northwest and other areas that are super white, that is a stand-in for black. Pit bull. The word pit bull, first off, and when people ban pit bulls from their apartment complexes or their particular neighborhoods, that's meant to keep out black people and Hispanic people, because the perception is that we're the ones that actually own them. You see, my wife didn't even know that until she got into researching the American Bully, and some of the breeders were even like saying that, because most of the breeders are black and Hispanic, so they would know. I have American Bully breeders who actually follow me, who have said the exact same thing. Right? There's certain stand-in terms that people will use for.
Loud music.
Huh?
Loud music.
Loud music. But they will sometimes make a distinction on what genre of music.
Yeah.
They will say things like no loud rap music.
Yeah.
You know who that's meant for. Or they'll say things like there are certain apartment complexes who will try to pass off dress codes. Now that is specifically unconstitutional. There was an apartment complex in New York that tried to actually tell their tenants to not sag their pants, and it's like, what? Excuse me, I just pay to live here. You don't get to tell me how I dress. What? If I want to walk outside in a freaking clown suit, that's my business. If I want to be Thanos for the whole day, that's my business. But there are certain things, certain policies that people will implement that aren't meant to be directly anti-black. But if you're on code with white supremacy, you recognize it. See, that's what we call dog whistles. So now we move into the next part of it. Oh, what part of Washington am I in? Tacoma. It's kind of like it's kind of a weird city, but it kind of encapsulates parts of Tacoma, parts of Puyallup. I finally learned how to pronounce that now. Puyallup, but whatever, man. Whatever. That I'm not even gonna bother trying to pronounce that word. But basically, anti-black. So back to the actual subject. So anti-blackness. Let me explain. There's a lot of stand-in stuff that people use for black people. Like, for example, when people use the word urban, urban, ethnic, loud,
attitude,
new age, woke is standing for black people. I lived in Lakewood. Yeah, Lakewood. I was in Lakewood. The word ghetto, woke is definitely a stand-in term for black people. Basically, whenever you see the word woke, just think about just in your mind when you're reading the article or you're hearing the news article, just replace the word woke with black, and then that particular piece or whatever you listen to or whatever you're reading, it's gonna make a lot more sense. Right?
It's starting to be used pejoratively,
and it's also being be used pejoratively. Like and also. The reason why white supremacists love when we get an organization and why they dislike movements is because a movement is something like what MLK did. MLK started a whole civil rights movement. Rosa Parks sparked a civil rights movement. Mamie Till, Emmett Till's mother, by having that open casket, she sparked a civil rights movement. See, you can't stop a movement. You can stop an organization, though. That's why white supremacists love using Black Lives Matter as a stand-in for basically all black people. Because if Black Lives Matter ever does anything bad, right, then it's supposed to be a reflection of all of us. You get how that works? See, so notice how whenever they criticize Black Lives Matter, they say the exact same thing about Black Lives Matter as they'll say to you, the black person, when you complain about the police. The moment you complain about the police, right? Notice how they mention Chicago, 1350. You know what that is, right? 1350. They'll say all that stuff, and then notice how they said the exact same thing to Black Lives Matter. So if you're saying, if the Republicans and the right wingers and all the racists out there, people who know that they are racist, if you're saying that people like Candace Owens, you like her because she's an independent thinker, right? Hmm. Why is it that you mention things like Chicago or anything else when things happen to black people outside of those cities? If you truly think that we are not a monolith, think about it logically. Think about it logically just for a second. Mm. See, the problem with people like me, the reason why people out there who are more on the racist spectrum don't like debating me, even when I invite them to, or some of the people who are more of the tap dancing crowd, they don't like debating me, even when I invite them to. At least not, it's definitely not on my own platform where they can't just mute me or just gang up on me. The reason why they can't they can't engage in an honest debate though, is because of how just simple I just broke that down. These people, white supremacists, they like it when black people get organizations that could be infiltrated. Just think of the Black Panthers. Just think of the Black Panthers. The Black Panthers, they did great work, but we know they've been infiltrated from top to bottom. Even now. Even now. We know that. But you know what you can't infiltrate? You can't infiltrate a lineage. This is why foundational black Americans have taken off so well. I mean, you could point to Tariq Nasheed, you could point to myself, you could point to a Professor Black Truth, you could point to a Marcel Dixon, you could point to a Sir Major, you can point to to the Black Authority. You could point to a lot of people being some leader. None of us are, and that's the point. We own code, and our movement is the code. Our movement is the code. That's why right now black consciousness and black awakening is at an all-time high, because across the African diaspora, you're seeing black people basically stand up for other black people. Now, we're not all on code. Oh God, we got a long ways to go. Long ways to go. Don't get me wrong. However, what I will say this is that what I'm seeing is very encouraging. What I'm seeing is very encouraging, extremely encouraging. Because it's not just the older folks who's doing it. Really, who's leading the charge here in terms of this black empowerment thing is the young folks. You don't think that's a reason why someone like me can go on this platform, talk like this, and get the views that I get the follower count that I get? You don't, and it be used by younger folks, and you don't think that that's actually a sign? It's a sign. It's a sign to tell other black people it's okay. You can come out and talk just like this, and it's okay, y'all. You're free. And what frees you is that the rest of us are not going to jump on you for talking like this. Thank God. Thank God. It took several things to happen. It took Kyrie Irving. It took the lack of media coverage with Brett Favre. It took, honestly, Kanye West. It took some of the bills that was given to other communities. Executive orders, but we don't get anything. It took a George Floyd. It took a Uvalde. It took a civil rights movement. It took slavery. It took all this stuff. All the things that black people have been through has led up to this moment. And now the question that I want to ask every person who's watching is, what are you going to do now that the torch is in your hand? Mommy and daddy, they are no longer in control. You're in control now. It's up to us to end white supremacy. We could be the generation that ends it. We could be a generation. Ain't you tired of watching documentaries about freaking slavery? Ain't you tired of watching stuff about civil rights era? We know about it. It's time for us to make sure we never live it again. It's time for us to demand reparations. It's time for us to demand changes to these police. It's time for us to demand tangibles, the same benefits as anybody else's gets. Okay? I'm tired of driving by reservations, right? Seeing them I'm seeing people say, well, the reservations, they're not all what they cracked to be and everything else. Fine, take them away then. My people are disproportionately the homeless. Why don't we get reservations? Why? When you know we are living on the streets in Chicago, New York, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Dallas, Texas, San Antonio, Texas, Miami, Florida, Decatur, Georgia, Columbia, South Carolina, Brooklyn, New York. I mean, you just name it. We all over the place. But you give people reservations who make up a smaller percentage of the population than we do. Well, there's a reason why they end up being a small percentage of the population, and there's a reason why we're only 13% of the population for the past 50 years. All the same things happen to us. The only difference is the people that you gave reservations to had us as slaves too. Well, you own stolen land that we were actually dragged to. And by the way, quiet is kept, we've been on these lands. Hundreds of years before a white person even set foot on certain parts of the U.S., we were already here. They were called the Moors. Even the natives wrote about them. That's how we even know about them. So my thing is, the anti-blackness it comes in so many forms. It is an Ouroboros of white supremacy that it just seems never ending, but it eventually eats itself, just like the Ouroboros. Because it comes to the point where you're going to have to admit we were the first here, and we'll likely be the last. Black folks were the first of humans. We were the first. It is not debatable. You know, we were the first. There were split offs, whereas we became lighter. Certain parts of our species became lighter because of an ice age. Makes sense. Naturally speaking, when you put a dark-skinned person in a colder environment, in an ice-cold environment for generations, naturally speaking, that person is going to lighten up over time. You'll even notice it as a dark-skinned black person. If you live in a place like the Pacific Northwest, and you live in some of the super cold areas where it pretty much snows all year, over time, over your lifetime, you will notice you become lighter. It's not a huge difference, but it's a small incremental difference. But it is noticeable. It is measurable. So, my thing is, we were the beginning. And we'll be here long after our mutations. Which is, I can say that, it's not meant to be an insult. It's the truth, though. If you understand anything about how genetics work, that's how it happens. Pretty much when you get any kind of change in skin pigmentation or melanin or lack thereof, it is a mutation, which is fine. We mutate all the time. But this idea where you're somehow better because of your white skin, knowing fully well that's not how we started, and that's likely not how we're going to end, it's laughable. And I think that's where a lot of the anti-blackness comes from. Notice how there's a whole lot of envy, right? A lot of envy. You get a lot of people out there who will criticize us, tell us to be quiet, all this complaining that you do, all this stuff, all this talking, right? They do all this yakety yak. All this yakety yak. And what I find strange and unusual about this is that these people have envy. Because if you didn't have envy, why in the world are you getting your skin tanned? Why are you getting melanin injections? If there's no envy, why do you have people out there who are getting all kinds of injections and all kinds of body parts, if you know what I mean, to give themselves a stereotypical figure of a black woman? Why? Why is that? Why get injections in the lips to make your lips look bigger? Why try to make your hips look bigger, curvier? Hmm? Mm. I thought that our lips were a problem. I thought that our skin was bad. I mean, you spent so many generations in certain parts of the world, whereas you adhere to this Mihola La Rasa stuff. It's not just white people; it's certain other communities too. You adhere to this Mihola La Rasa stuff, and you made yourself lighter over time, even though originally you were very dark. This is why when you go over to Mexico, you talk to a lot of people from Mexico. They will tell you, I have a black abuela. They'll tell you that. Very much black. But over time, because you want to adhere to this Mihola La Raza nonsense, you made yourself lighter. Now that the ozone layer is going away, and now that the sun is becoming more prevalent, now it's a problem. Because some of you stuck in Mexico with that sun. See, you were naturally dark, which made sense for a place like Mexico, or many parts of the world. But because of white supremacy and self-doubt and self-hatred and anti-blackness and a new term that I want you guys to repeat, internalized anti-blackness. Normalize saying that. Whenever you see somebody in the sunken place, say that person is suffering from internalized anti-blackness. Because they've taken anti-blackness as a concept and they've internalized it. They've made it a part of their personality, a part of their psyche. See, that's a whole new level. That's a whole new level. Entirely new level. So, but back to what I'm saying though, you have so many people out there who have tried themselves, who have tried their hardest to make themselves appear lighter than what they actually are. They've spent generations doing this. And then they turn around and they get tans. They turn around and they get injections in their lips to make the lips look bigger. They turn around and get injections in other places to make the hips and the other parts look bigger. All this to revert back to what you naturally were in the beginning. And these people go through all these painful surgeries, all these painful procedures, all that pain when you just could have stayed what you were in the beginning. All this money spent, the thousands of hours, the medical malpractice lawsuits, trying to look like a black woman. You could have just stayed what you were, and that would have been good enough. But no, anti-blackness, internalized anti-blackness is the saddest thing in the world. And ladies, don't think that I'm just jumping on you with some of the injections and some of the skin tests. No, there's men too. There's men who have internalized, internalized anti-blackness. Herschel Walker, prime example. Clarence Thomas, prime example. Tim Scott, prime example. Listen, when a woman has internalized anti-blackness, with the exception of maybe a Candace Owens, you find that they do things externally, but they don't necessarily verbally say stuff, right? They'll do things like they'll do things like skin bleaching. They'll do things like they'll put all kind of harmful chemicals in their hair. No, this is what a black woman in the sunken place does. You don't typically see the hardcore stuff like an Anthony Bryan Logan or freaking Tim Scott, right? That's hardcore. That's mask off. Charles Barkley, yeah, Sammy Sosa, people like that, right? But when a black woman is in a sunken place, she tends to express this, physically by doing something that a black person would look at and go, okay, something is wrong, right? So some of the internalized anti-blackness, it can definitely depend on if you're a black man or a black woman. It does depend sometimes, the form that you see it, oftentimes. Now, that's not true in every case, but this is just things that I've noticed. Like, for example, if you get a black woman who, just for example, may have a problem with dating or even being around black people, she'll say things like, well, I don't date black men. Stuff like that. Like, I'll date a black woman. I just happened to run into a person who wasn't black. My first marriage was to a black woman. I cutting yourself off from the black community in general. Saying things like, "Well, I don't listen to things that black people listen to." Certain anti-black statements like that, or they'll say things like, "Well, I don't hang out in certain neighborhoods. I don't hang around my own folks. Stuff like that." And we've seen that, whereas certain people, not just black women, but you do see a lot with black women, they'll get degrees, and then suddenly they're better than everybody else. You see a lot with black men too. Don't get me wrong, but the amount of degree attainment would definitely show that this problem is definitely a black woman problem, and we gotta definitely address that. Now, on to black men. It's not gonna just be black women that I'm gonna jump on. Black men. Black men, the anti-black hatred that we show towards ourselves, it manifests in some ugly ways. Ways that, quite frankly, I gotta be honest, is uglier than what I see typically with black women. You'll see black men who won't value themselves, and they'll get into some stupid dispute and end up shooting at each other. Stupid stuff like that. See, when you see stuff like that, that's not a reflection of the black community. That is a reflection of anti-black hatred. That is a reflection of white supremacy. You only really see that in neighborhoods where you see economic deprivation. You only really see that in neighborhoods whereas people are forced into certain professions due to a lack of resources, of upward mobility, a lack of education, poverty. You have several resources. You have several pillars of poverty, as I call them, pillars of poverty that forces an individual into that reality. Because you don't see a bunch of rich black people out here shooting each other. Even Jay-Z raps about all that stuff, but you don't see him out here doing that. You don't see Puffy out here doing drive-bys. You don't see Denzel Washington, hurting nobody. You don't see that. You don't see that. So what you're seeing, some of the crime that you do see in the black community, and it is not as bad as people make it out to be, but the crime that you do see, it is a reflection of poverty and lack of opportunity. It's not a reflection of the black community, because there's no way that you're telling me that if you gave the average black person $500,000, that we would all be shooting each other for freaking money. There'd be no point. So what people need to understand is that often the internalized anti-blackness that many black people have for ourselves and also towards each other, that comes oftentimes from the results of white supremacy. We will say things like, well, I wish that there were more black fathers in the home, yet we don't recognize the role that the criminal justice system plays in keeping the black father out of the home. We blame the black community for something that white supremacy caused. We'll say things like, well, I think that this person should be locked up for a nonviolent offense. You have people from other communities who will defend their folks. You have black people who have been falsely accused of crimes, right? They have been proven innocent in court, and yet members of the black community will still judge them. Right now, you have white people defending Dana White, defending Brett Favre, defending Donald Trump, defending Joe Biden, defending everybody who's white, and have you thinking that this black person who's committed a lesser offense deserves more smoke than someone like Joe Biden. To this day, there are people out there who judge Kyrie Irving, who shared a link and shared his opinion, never hurt a soul, was never a police officer, was never a soldier. You judge this man more harshly than Joe Biden, who has ordered drone strikes on black and brown countries. Michael Vick. No. Prime example, Adrian Peterson. Adrian Peterson was an NFL MVP. Played for the Minnesota Vikings. Was a running back. MVP. He spanked his son. Now I agree. I don't agree with that. But his son lives in a mansion. He's got a good father. Father didn't abandon him. And I've seen recent videos. They doing good. When have you ever seen a white father who's an NFL MVP? And there's been multiples who have gone on, I've actually went and researched it. Multiples who have come forward saying, I spanked my son too. When have you ever seen them face what Adrian Peterson faced? They complain about a lack of black fathers, right? Right? Adrian Peterson was an actual involved father. And you crucified this man for disciplining his son the way he chose to in his own home. In his own home. My mama used to kick my butt. I mean, she would find weapons, son. It was like Mortal Kombat. Listen, and ain't nobody ever did nothing. I learned to respect her. Now, I don't believe in spanking myself, but I'm not going to judge a parent if they do that and they crucified this man. What is the government doing in this man's household in the first place? If he's feeding that child, if he's clothing the child, if the child's got somewhere to live, if the child got health care, it's none of your business how you choose to discipline the freaking child. It's none of your business. It's none of your business. I mean, most everybody who's over the age of 30 who's listening to this particular broadcast, you all got spankings at some point. At least once. At least once. They destroyed this man's career for doing what your parents did at least once. The only difference is your parents weren't an NFL MVP. That's absurd. You can't complain about the black father not being in the home, and yet every time that we are, you tell us how to raise our children. Yeah, I had a recent spat about that with some people who were particularly close to me. I had to tell some people, I hope you don't teach, your son about all this stuff that you do with all your activism and all the black empowerment stuff. And I had to tell a person, I said, I am going to. I'm going to teach my son that he's black. I'm going to teach my son that he's a direct descendant of American slaves. I'm going to teach my son about the struggle, the black condition. I'm going to teach my son about black history. And you can like it or not like it. That don't make me a difference. And his mama already said that's totally fine with her. No. It ain't like she gonna stop me anyway. Cause I'm gonna teach my son all about the reality of being him. Because we gotta start teaching our young folks the reality of white supremacy. That way they aren't walking into situations in life blind. They don't get blindsided. You know? Don't teach things like, well, it was a long time ago. We got to get over that. We got to move. Things like, well, you could trust some police. Things like, I'm gonna just leave my child unattended around a bunch of people who ain't black. Listen, my wife ain't even black, and I've already told her, and you can hear in the background, baby, my child is not gonna be around a bunch of people who ain't black. Do you agree or not?
Absolutely.
Okay, she's not even black, and she just said that. Yeah, because she already knows the deal. She already knows the deal. She know what it is. No.
I understand the assignment.
Yeah. No. We cannot play these games anymore, man.
No.
It don't matter if you are in a relationship with a black person, with a non-black person, with a gay person, with a straight person. It don't matter who you are in a relationship with. We have to take anti-blackness seriously. And if that means that we have an inherently adversarial relationship with certain family members who may be in-laws, unfortunately, that's what it is. If they don't understand what you gotta do to protect your child, and I'm gonna openly say it, there's some in-laws who are like that, who fit that description, and they ain't all just white. There's some black people who are some self-hating types who I do not want around my child. The type to bring up Chicago and that kind of stuff. I don't want you around my child.
Or everybody's racist.
Or stuff like or everybody's racist. Yeah, no. You're not gonna be anywhere around my child. And every black parent out there needs to also take that particular advice. If you're a white person and you happen to have a black child, say you are a white woman who your spouse or the person that you had a child with was black. If you got a black child, understand something. Here's your assignment. It don't matter if you're a black woman or a white woman or a Hispanic woman or Asian woman. If you got a black child, here's the assignment. You may see them as a lovely bundle of joy. And that's great. You should. But that's not how the dominant white society and this anti-black society is going to see them. They're going to see them as black. Yeah. Therefore, when you raise them as black. You tell them the reality, not how you want it, but as it is. Yeah. Right? Like you would love a world in which it don't matter what color you are, we all get love. But that's not the kind of world that we live in. That's not the kind of world that we live in. We live in a world whereas you'll tell a black father you will tell a black father you can't spank your child. But if the police show up near Tamir Rice with a toy, with a freaking toy, they can fatally shoot him, and nothing happens to the police officer. That's the kind of world that we live in. We live in the kind of world where a police officer in Georgia can throw a flashbang grenade into a baby's crib in a no-knock raid on the wrong house. Nobody goes to jail. Nobody gets fired. Everything's A-okay. That's the kind of world that we live in. We live in a kind of world where your 2021 Sheriff of the Year covers up essays that happens to children. Yeah. And I know because I'm one of the children. Oh, it's a lie. If that's the first time that you've heard that, it's a lie about me that you don't know. That's the kind of world that we live in, folks. We live in a world whereas we will lock up a black man for selling a plant. We won't, but we won't lock up a Catholic priest or a Boy Scout leader or Epstein until it gets too hot. And when he ends up being when he ends up in the upper room, the people that did it, we still don't know who did it. Oh, in the list from the DC Madam and Epstein list, what happened to those lists? But we locking up black rappers on RICO charges though. But we can't find out anything about these on lists from the DC Madam or doggone Epstein. That's the kind of world that we live in. So it don't matter if you are a non-black person with a black child or a black person with a black child, the assignment is just the same. You live in an anti-black world. So act like it. And teach your child as if they live in an anti-black world, because guess what? They do. They do. So with that being said, guys, it's going to be it from my stream. I just want to give a little bit of a sermon. I want to do these a little bit more frequently, a little bit more long form where I kind of freestyle and I kind of show you guys that I don't strip any of this stuff. This is who I am, right? I want to just give you guys some of the game, and I'm going to upload this stuff on YouTube. I also upload these to hbcc.social and also obt.social. So hbcc.social HBCC.social. It's a black-owned platform. Make sure you join that. It also has its own app now. It's not going to be found on the App Store. It is actually directly downloaded from your mobile device on the mobile browser. So with that being said, guys, that's going to be it for me tonight. Until next time, horns up, peace out, good night, and good luck.